here.
Hope you're ready to run this like an auction. This could be 4 hours.
Dom limited me to 2.5 minutes per topic, so I've done my micro machines talk. Hey,
It's all American. See, the bad thing about it is we're
and
socially
Amy wants to see her
distanced.
cubbies, so.
Well, yeah, about 12 minutes.
We're
You got a
socially
DVR?
distanced.
You got DVR? Not the same?
And you can see your feet underneath, because normally I would sit next to the person who tends to talk the most and kind of kick them. But I can't do that. Can't do it to anybody here. I could just say.
Yes, it was.
Hi, folks.
Hi.
Hello.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm ready now. Call the Oglesby City Council working meeting to order.
Augubright,
Here.
Solomon,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Yeski,
Here.
Rivara.
Aye. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on, I got a little something I want to say. We're here to discuss ways as to how we can improve how we manage the city and implement best practices. I also want to thank Republic for helping the city of Oglesby in its recycle program last Saturday. We had 71 vehicles come through Saturday, and we thank the city employees for all their help. Remax, a First Choice, was unable to attend tonight's meeting due to a conflict. I have extended an invitation for them to make a presentation at a council meeting. And they approached me about a week and a half ago. They put murals on side of buildings and et cetera. But nothing is free. They were also interested in putting some things on the silos by Lehigh Park. Trevero is not interested in looking at that at all. So, we'll go on to the agenda. The first on the agenda is public comments on agenda items only.
Drew Merriman, and the one that I have trouble with is number 6. It looks like you're wanting to do things as far as hiring and firing. And the 2 that I would like to see added to this, since we moved here in '74, is conflict of interest and nepotism. And just about every city council, I can bring up people that were hired or fired, you know, because of that. And it's 2021. Is it ever gonna stop?
Drew, I
Thank you.
can only address the conflict of interest, and all council members have to file that conflict of interest with city clerk in Ottawa, so those statements are on file for conflict of interest.
Okay, let's move on.
He's talking about
to-
hiring other people that have conflicts of interest with people,
Yeah.
like relatives, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's the nepotism.
Okay, number 6 is revise the ordinance for hiring, termination of city employees. And A is establish a HR policy and guidelines, establish job description and duties, establish annual evaluation of employees, and council approve required for hiring terminations. This is 2021. I think we need firm guidelines, especially in how HR policy. Every time you turn around, somebody is looking to sue you. I just think we need to go back, revisit it, and clean it up.
I did reach out and I asked Amy to send out a memo asking for job descriptions for each title that we have in our departments, and I have received quite a few of them to date so far. So I think that's a good place to start, is getting those job descriptions. And I can put them into a same format. Job descriptions for certain jobs don't have to be long and lengthy. They can be very short and sweet. Some of them I have just a little tiny paragraph, and some of the ones submitted to me are 3 and 4 pages. I don't think any of them needs to be more than 3 or 4 pages, nor do I believe that they have to all be 3 or 4 pages long. So whatever you guys have, please get them to me. I think I asked for a deadline by, is it this Friday? This Friday. So I do thank you for those that have been sent in so far. I can work at getting those, again, in a kind of a uniform design. So that would be kind of the springboard then for creating some of the other things that we talked about. In an annual evaluation of employees, that would be something that we would have to have that as our policy or an ordinance, that there is an annual evaluation. And I think we should discuss now, is the annual evaluation on the month before the fiscal year begins, or is it on the anniversary date of hire? Practices are, I see practices both ways.
And Carrie, maybe I should interject here,
Mhm, sure.
because we did a little research into your ordinances, which I'm certainly not totally familiar with, but you have a 34-page ordinance on this subject. That sets up the council as a whole as a wage and salary committee. You are supposed to be reviewing these employees annually before the turn of the fiscal year. So I think I made copies of this for all of you to take home, so you'd know what the current existing rules are. You can take a look at them. You know, you may want to make changes to these, but this is what we're dealing
Well,
with.
that would be the great place to,
It's a good place to
yeah,
start, I think.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
so-
what we already have currently, is what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So if you all would get your job descriptions to me by Friday, that'd be great. And then if we just want to review these on our own, and then maybe submit to centrally, whether it be to me or to anybody, your thoughts of how to change them, and then we can put all those suggestions forward to say, yeah, we should change it that way, or no, we shouldn't. I'd be happy to correlate.
The goal here is to make the revisions that we've got the best practice going forward
Correct.
in hiring or when they do evaluations, and hopefully we never have to terminate anybody. It's just good business. If you have these in place, we can avoid a lawsuit, and that's the ultimate goal, to be above board, to be transparent, and
I didn't hear about the last termination until it already happened.
So, yeah, I'd like to,
But
well, I'd like to
I
talk.
guess we can debate this, and then there's an ordinance probably already written for next week,
We
but.
can debate whether the employee submitted a resignation or was terminated. The problem, as far as his, he could do the work. He just had some issues that were causing him a problem, and it was probably better that he moved on.
So, yeah, I'd actually love to talk about that a little bit, because it does have me concerned with how it happened and how things kind of played out. Whether the person should not be an employee here or not, I don't think that's a debate. I am concerned that, so the way it happened was, the mayor was informed of it. I even had the union steward involved and everything. There's debate whether the guy self-terminated or he got terminated. That's a whole other thing. But I do think this brings something up. What if I would have done it wrong, right? As a commissioner in the city, if I would have exercised my authority to terminate an employee and I did it wrong, the city could have a liability with that. So one of the things I'm suggesting that I think we should do is, when it comes to firings, I think a commissioner should only have the authority to suspend for a period of time, and then the HR have a review to make sure that it's legal to terminate. Because if the mayor wasn't available or the union steward wasn't available, I still would have taken the action I did, because I didn't have trust in the employee to touch our system.
But on the same token, it needs to be a council decision.
Now it does, after Jason did it, okay. And so
After
for
what?
3 weeks, they'll be suspended until the next council meeting, and then we'll
Well, that's,
just pay them to be
well,
here?
so
or-
that's a whole thing of discussion. I don't know if it needs to necessarily be, and this is a debate, I don't know if it needs to be a council decision. I think as long as there is some form of HR review that we have to ensure that it wasn't illegal to terminate, I think that's all that should satisfy that. I'm not even sure, and people might disagree with me. I don't know if we necessarily have to have a council decision to approve everybody in the city for a hire, but I think it's a debate to talk about how we think should best way to handle it.
I hope we don't have to debate lifeguards.
Well, I was gonna say, I
never
think
know.
that's what we have a city attorney for. I mean, we've always gone to the city attorney for legal matters. So, I mean, if in doubt, you can go through him, and if he can't figure it out, then
Well, maybe that's what I'm saying about the HR process. Whatever the HR process is.
I'm not afraid of discussing it before the council. I think it's good policy.
No, you just want to be in control of it. You got it. continuing on. You
No, I
weren't
don't
happy
wanna-
how we hired the last person, so now we're having this big, huge debate, but there's probably already an ordinance even written already about this, and it's gonna be on next Monday, so.
Well, let's talk about, what do you propose is the best way to ensure we hire people?
Leave it alone. Because in 2 years now, I have a feeling all these things we're doing because, oh, in the perfect world, this is what we're gonna do, the next council's gonna throw out. But, so I'm just thinking about it.
Well, I do believe there should be some form of checks and balances when you're hiring a permanent employee that's getting a permanent benefit package for union. I think there should be
There's-
some form that we
Isn't there
do it.
180 days before they're permanent?
Correct. But
Are we
then
gonna
how-
review your new 180-day guy, or are we not gonna talk about it?
Do we want to put that in an HR policy, that we review that formally? I don't have a problem with that.
I'm okay with that, but I'm just saying, that's why they have that 180 days or 90, what, I think it's 180.
It's 180, I think.
Yeah, that's why it's in there. See how they do, and if they don't work out, we can find somebody new.
Well, if that's the case, then we need to have a thing to where they're definitely getting a review prior to that first 6 months then, so that way a council could make a decision if somebody needed to be terminated or something like that, I suppose.
But I think the commissioners should review it, and if it's not, there's a rare few cases, I think, before the 180 days, we'll be doing that. So then they can, bring it to the council, but that'd be different.
What's your thoughts on needing the council to approve hires or not? What's your thoughts on that?
It would depend, I think, on the position being hired for. I don't know if you brought it up or you about lifeguards. I don't really care to know about the lifeguards. I think that should be up to, who's ever in charge of the pool and JP. I think between those two people.
I think there has to be a distinction between part-time summer help and permanent employees.
Because for part-time employees, we don't have any, they could be, if there was a problem, they could be terminated without any kind of legal obligation. Is that accurate?
Part-time employees, yes.
So maybe we have it to where part-time employees, we actually have it in the policy. Part-time employees do not need any kind of council approval, commissioner alone. Maybe full-time employees, there needs to be a breakdown between whether it's a council approval. I think for department heads and above, the council should probably be assigning them. If it's less than a department head, though, I'll be honest, I think that decision could be handled between the relevant commissioner and the mayor. I think that's really all you need. I'm trying to think of an example where a commissioner and the mayor would agree that they want to hire somebody, and then they bring it to the council, to where I would be somebody that would object.
Yeah.
I can't think of a scenario where that would happen, especially if it's in a department that's not mine. I don't know anything
Why would
about
we
it.
even write an ordinance then? If 2 out of the 5 of us approve it, you could see it being approved by the council. Why are we even
Because
writing
there-
it
There
then?
needs to be some checks and balances, such as, was a job description given to the person that you're trying to hire? Do you know what I'm saying? What was the selection process that you went through for determining who to interview? Because you obviously don't have to interview everybody that applies, but there should be something in place that helps you to decide who do I want to interview.
We need to have something that's standard and that we can defend in
Well-
any court as to how we did the process.
And that
Every-
would be one thing that you would have to be defendable.
But every hiring, I've used the sheet that we use for the clerk for every interview, or every interview and everyone I've ever hired. I don't know how Jason did in his department, but it was pretty standardized when I was doing it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having some standardized questions we ask, but every department's obviously gonna be a little different. My questions were more of a technical nature and what their experience level was, things like that. So I'm sure for police, it's completely different, so.
Right, and my process for the chief position was very specific to, police work, in addition to some customer service and how would you handle or address. So you got a feel for what their leadership style might be. But again, that's a very specific position.
Yeah,
So
and
let's work on it and try to develop something, and it's something that we're not gonna get done in the next
No.
2 weeks, that's for sure.
Just skimming through this, I really didn't see anything about how to terminate,
Nothing in
not
there, Carrie.
a selection process or
But
even
just-
job
Just about the
descriptions.
annual reviews are in here, Carrie. There were some things in here I thought you guys should be aware of.
Absolutely.
Well, there's one thing I wasn't, even the very first thing, the very first thing is establishment of wage and salary committee.
Yeah.
And then I see on the bottom there, it was at least the last modification of it was 1983. So I don't know, has the city ever had a wage and salary committee?
Well, I think those are addressed underneath within the contracts, correct?
Well, when this was written, there was no contracts.
Ah,
Yeah, so
so there you go.
because I don't know if we've, because I mean, that was one of the things we talked about is how to establish
It's
wages
the-
and
it's the-
salaries for
It's
non-union.
the idea to bring us into the 21st century, to make sure that we establish best practices, so we don't find ourselves in a lawsuit.
And if you look at, right at the middle of the first page, for instance, it requires all new full-time employees to have a physical exam. Something I'm sure you probably haven't been doing as you've been hiring people.
Is that even legal to require that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
We
yeah.
do on the police department, absolutely.
Well,
Yes.
But there are things in here I thought you should be aware are on your books so that we can work
Right.
around them. If we're gonna start making changes, there might be other things you wanna change in here.
My one question is there anybody that's employed by the city of Oglesby that is not covered under contract?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So there should be some things in here about how to establish their wages.
Correct. There's, well, including the ambulance and fire, but besides that, there's two, I believe, which are really kind of year-round that aren't covered under contract.
Right, the ambulance, well, the fire chief, the ambulance director, Amy.
She's under a contract.
they're under contract, just not union contract.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's two people.
well, let's.
I think we skipped number 5.
Okay, we'll go down to the next one, it's a review and revise.
We skipped number 5 down.
Did I?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, and that's gonna be a big one. Establishing purchasing spending limits throughout the city. As an example, when you see we approve the bills, all that money's been spent already. And what has happened is that, and this is an example, and it's not, it's just how things happen sometimes. We approved a bid for a $24,000 addition to the Parks Garage. Then we see an addition probably of at least $10,000 that were spent in addition to it. Nobody approved it, they just went ahead and it happened.
They spent $10,000 with what contractor?
Contractor, they did it with material from Menards and city employees doing the work. That's an expense. Then we turned around and bought a $7,400 trailer.
We put an office
and
in the police
nobody-
station,
and
didn't we?
nobody- And nobody even knew that they bought it.
Didn't we put an office in the police station? We didn't even talk about it? I'm just pointing it out here. Like, if we want to nitpick here, I can nitpick all day too, but.
I'm not nitpicking, it's a problem that we have. How do you go out and spend $7,400 in a trailer and not even the commissioner was aware of it?
I think this is gonna be a challenging thing to solve. You know, I've always believed that you wanna be able to limit people's authority to be able to get the job done. Right now, we have the authority to purchase up to $20,000 worth of stuff on any commissioner that they can do. And I'll tell you right now, there's times that I've had to get close to that number, like a pump goes out at a lift station or something like that. So just saying unilaterally to lower the number makes it difficult. Okay, but if you don't lower the number, then how do you say which purchases are valid or not? The only thing I can think of here is make a spending a limit that employees have to get some type of authorization before purchasing something. And, because there is one problem I've never been a fan of that we do here is I get my bills and I look through all the bills, it's like 100 pages of stuff, and I look at them, and if I got a question on something, I go to the relevant department and ask the question. The problem is, we already bought it.
It's already spent.
It's
right?
already
It's
spent.
already spent.
So the problem is, I go to them and say, hey, this, you know, for the most part, they're all good. Every once in a while, I'll see something like, why did we do this instead of that? And I gotta handle it that way, but I'm always handling it after the fact. So I don't know if having a type of rule about a certain dollar amount to get authorized beforehand would help solve any of this. Either way, I think this is gonna be a very difficult thing to solve via ordinance.
It would be prudent, I think, to get permission, really, yes, from the commissioner of that particular department. But I don't know that I have in mind what that dollar amount would be.
But the head of the departments stay here while we will all change eventually. So that's why it's more of, they manage the department, and we're kind of here to say, okay, checks and balances thing. It's not, oh, we're gonna draw a line here and that's what we're gonna let you do.
Yeah, I don't have an
Personally, I
easy
don't
way.
wanna micromanage my department, but that's
Well,
just
no,
me, so.
nobody's looking to micromanage. We've gotta develop a way that we know what the hell is going on, instead of after the fact. You know, if we need something, we can do this, and it's gonna cost us, and, you know, we're not actually, what am I trying to say for words here? You know, if we're not looking to say, hey, you can only spend $1,200, but this is gonna cost $1,400, so you gotta be, that should be between the commissioner and the guy that's running the department, and he reports to the council. Hey, this is why we're spending money over here. This is why. There has to be a better way to do things, and we are doing it.
Well, it's difficult, I believe, for the people who are running the departments to work off an appropriations type budget as opposed to, you know, here's a line item, I can spend X amount in supplies, I can spend X amount in salaries, I can spend X amount in, you know, whatever projects, and then they can hold themselves accountable for variances within that department, but when you have an appropriation, it's just a big lump sum of money, and hopefully at the end, you're not, I don't know, I think the appropriations budget is hard to work under.
Yeah, I don't
That
have
might be me.
I don't have an easy suggestion to solve some of these things that we have, because we kind of operate pretty loosely with appropriations in the first place, like Carrie was saying.
Understand, but it's out there, and we wouldn't run a business this way.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is like what I said, you know, I would be afraid of lowering any kind of limits what people can do, but maybe making it a limit amount that you have to get prior authorization for. But some of those become complicated, like for example, there might be a water main break that happens, and a standard water main break might only cost a couple thousand to fix. But all of a sudden, they get McLeany's out here or something like that, and it's become an incredibly complicated project. It's an all-day thing, and before you know it, the bill comes through at $11,000. Well, what were you supposed to do in that case? I mean, do we make exceptions for emergencies? And, you know, I don't know.
Well, I think we have to.
So what happens if they don't listen to us? Are we gonna terminate them? What's the plan here? Just say it, you know,
Well, but that
especially
would-
if they're an outgoing employee that
That would
spends
be part of
$7,400
their
on
evaluation.
Park District. What are we gonna do? Nothing.
Well, outgoing employee is a bad example, but,
I'm
I
just
mean,
saying.
if we had an ordinance and anybody doesn't follow the rules, I mean, there's discipline that would happen. I'm not saying that's what's happening inside the city.
But it would fall under that annual evaluation if they
There you go.
continue to have, you know.
I'm
that
just thinking about going to Union Stewart and saying, well, if they spent 10,000 more than they were supposed to, we wanna get rid of them. Like,
Well, I think she makes a great
That's
point.
not what I said at all.
No, I think she makes a great
Yeah.
point in the annual, I mean, there's budgeting and then there's
Yeah.
management of funds. I mean, that's a skill set and,
And there's always ways to explain the variances. If you have a 10% or a 20% variance on line items, you know what happened. You had the water main break, it was an emergency. There was, you know, death in the family, and you had to use a lot of overtime for people to cover that person. So there are reasons for the variances, and you keep track of them. But if there's continued you know, disregard for the money that's being spent, then that's something that you can hold the person accountable for.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, though, I mean, the
And it
problem,
is a business.
even though you get somebody gets a bad mark in their evaluation, does that make a difference to residents? Residents go, there's still, people are spending way too much money on something like that. I mean, yeah, they got a bad mark on eval, but what is that going to equate to? You know, I can't answer that.
The idea is to correct and find the best practice as to how we operate. Let's go down to number 7.
Are we,
I thought we were through
We did
with
6.
6.
okay.
Did them out of order.
No, I'm just wondering,
I
are we,
I was out of order, I
I was
skipped
wondering what
one.
we're leaving 5 at. What are we gonna do with that? Leave
Well, I
nothing,
think
or?
we'll go back and try to come up with some ideas on how to get a best practice, how we operate. And I would ask each one of the commissioners to come back and make a suggestion. How can we work together to address it? Number 7 is review and revise current timesheets. The only thing we have now on timesheets is an employee's name and 8 hours. If there's overtime, they'll put the overtime worked, whether it's from 4 to 8 o'clock or whatever it is, and maybe some additional information. What I'm actually looking for is to, if we can do this, paperless, 8 hours if they're working in the TIF district, to make sure that we're applying the employee's time and any equipment to the TIF. That if they give us a brief, we can put numbers and develop if they're, whatever they're working on, whether it's water, it's electric problem, or it's the road in a particular district. And we can, and if they're taking sick leave, on vacation that day, or whatever, we'll have an ongoing tracking method.
Yeah, I thought those
So,
examples.
How does this work now with projects? Do you have, because I know when we get the bills, it says TIF on them if that project was done in a TIF, but.
Not for labor necessarily,
Yeah,
but
I know,
for.
I mean
yeah.
materials, but,
Well, I never did get a response from the TIF attorney. Several months ago, we had some examples of some, I think it was, might have even been Peru's timesheets, for example, how they used, I think.
Yes.
And I sent that to him asking, could this be detailed enough to justify when employees work in a TIF zone to do that? I never really got that answer back. But either way, right now, all we have is just the time slots, and then they just make an annotation down there. I do think having something that will have more options to put data on there would be useful.
And we've had some issues with, discrepancies, whether, how much sick leave, vacation, eliminate that, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I don't think you'll ever be able to eliminate it without having an electronic software that would eliminate it. If you're still gonna reduce or keep, even if it's an electronic spreadsheet of our
I'd like to end
own.
up paperless.
Well, yeah, I would too. It's just that there are so many complexities between the different departments. Some departments are really straightforward. They worked, they had a holiday, they had a vacation day, whatever. But so many of the other departments, it's on call, or there's, call out hours, or like I'm thinking of ambulance, transfer hours or transfer pays. There's so many ifs and ands, and then you wanna add work and TIF. It's gonna be a very complex, even if you did it yourself and just had spreadsheets, then that you would have them,
I don't think this is a one-size-fits-all.
there isn't.
Because the ambulance people, that's kind of a different, animal, so to speak. They're gonna have to track things differently. you know, for your police, so to be, similar or something that's different, you're gonna have to have one for the police. You're gonna have to have one for the IBEW.
So if you're looking at software that would have individual types of products for each of that type, you're looking at lots and lots of money.
I think each commissioner should make a timesheet for their specific departments, because then we can target it to each one of them. If we wanna all see them, we can, but I think that would be the best way to go forward.
Yeah.
I think that would get,
It might.
that probably would be useful, probably won't be able to get to our paper list though by doing that though. If that's the ultimate goal, I don't know how to solve
Well,
both
Do we
problems.
have, does each department have computers? I don't even know.
We got a laptop in each.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they all share the laptops, do hours, that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
okay.
I just feel sorry for the city hall who has to try to do payroll. That's
Yeah.
looking at, it's too many moving parts and so much room to have an error and accidentally have an error. I feel sorry for the department having
Is-
to.
You know, I know we were looking
Yeah.
at the Peru one that we sent off. Is it possible to develop an electronic one that all departments could still utilize? You know, they might have a different section in there for how they would, but that way, at least when payroll comes, they can actually look at the number of hours and make it a little bit easier
You
for
can
them.
develop a spreadsheet for them to be able to, but a computerized one that's going to be able to say, oh, I wanted to take 5 vacation days, but I really only have 4 vacation days left. You're not gonna know that. In a computerized software, you would know that, because you
Well,
would know
that-
I only have that accrued 32 hours left, not 40.
We have that though, and I think their
Do you?
check stubs tell them how many of each they have left.
But that's only after she inputs it all.
Yeah, well, I guess if they
If-
take
but if
off
she's
an
been
extra
putting it
vacation they
for
don't
up to date.
have, but,
Is that possible that we can do that?
but I think the department's probably, I don't know.
Can we just do an electronic spreadsheet? And that way, it's paperless. Each department has their own. At the end of the day, who's the supervisor that day puts in the people's hours, annotate it, and, but then do you need, I don't know, legally, is there required to have a signature when it gets submitted before, how does that work?
You mean from the department head?
Yeah, do you require a
No,
signature
I
to
don't-
verify
You
that?
know, that could be electronically submitted to Amy, but then Amy's still gotta input all that information. Gets back to
Right.
Carrie's point. There's nothing
Yeah.
electronically that's gonna be able to make that easier for you. You know, if you wanted to use time clocks, you could do that, but some departments that does not work in, and you'd need a time clock at every department probably.
Yeah.
You know, we need to do something different than we got now. And I'll just use, Jason, 8 hours on April 26th. We need more information than that.
Yeah, and that was my concern, like when they do the overtime, and that's kind of what started that conversation I had with them is, you know, I know there was a ton of time that we were working on GTI. Well, if we would have had that annotated right, all of those hours could have been attributed to the TIF to be able to pay for that funding. So how about this, at the very least, let me do a follow-up.
So what TIF money are you talking about? The stuff we were saving for the state grant that we're obviously not gonna get because it's gonna be in 5 years when they might pay us? So, because last year TIF was pretty much spoken for before we even started the year because of that grant.
Yeah, I can't answer that question. I mean,
So-
you're absolutely right. I mean, how much do you put to the TIF for certain, and we've had plenty of conversations about this before. I mean, anytime you have an opportunity to use money from a restricted fund over a general fund, you want to do that. And that's one of the items we're going to talk about here for salt purchases that I just found out this last year about. Just because we can use it, how much do you use? I just want to make sure that if we have the opportunity to take money from a TIF for something, for any ways that we have the means, because right now we don't have a means to really do it. And
Yeah,
that's
no,
what
I
I'm,
got
that's
that.
what I'm trying to ask.
Let's go down, number 8 is Oglesby residents. How far away a city worker may live. Right now, it is at 16, 18 hours, or
16
16,
miles.
I think
18
it's
miles.
16.
I'm sorry.
16 miles, and the question is that drivable miles or as a crow flies miles?
From the center of the city all the way
Crow
around.
flies.
Yeah, I think it's crow flies.
So it's a radius.
Yeah. Why would we expand it? Can I ask that question? Because at one point, you had to live in Oglesby, and then I think a
Okay.
commissioner decided that he was gonna let somebody live outside of the city, so that's why we have this new
Well,
one.
I was wondering where 16 miles came, it just seems like a,
Cause I believe someone moved out of the city after he got permission 16 miles away, if I, or no,
Ah.
Peru does it that way, that's why.
We had one move out, and it was 16 miles as the crow flies.
I think that's plenty far. I mean, are we debating if whether or not you do a waiver for somebody because it's such a specialized employee? Is that what we're talking about? Or just standardized, no matter what, 16 miles, that's it?
I can tell you this came up only during contract negotiations with the police. And not that there was a real issue, big issue, but it was like, is that where our stance is? Is that where we're holding?
We got 16 miles, and I think the issue come up, and I may be off on it, is the person lived 18.2 miles.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I'm not
I know you're not a 2-point,
I'm
but
not
you
a
know what,
big-
if
But
the
you got-
response time,
hire the person,
That's what
if
it's all
it's
about.
unreasonable.
It's
if
a safety, security, response time issue, is why
Right.
it's usually in there.
and that's what that really falls back on, and if if it's Tom Augerbright being a finance person and you can't live outside to be a commissioner. But you know what I'm saying, it's not a life and death reason for him to have to get to work here. Some of the things he can take care of via telephone while he's on the way into work, that's one thing, but if you need to respond to an emergency such as on the police, fire, or ambulance, I really believe that if our 16 miles is 16 miles, then it should be 16 miles, unless you shorten it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the reasons it exists there is, let's say we got an electrical worker and he lives 29 miles away. Well, when he's on call, what does that mean? If there's an outage inside Oglesby, that adds extra time that everybody's gonna have before there's a restoration of service. So, I think just leaving it at 16, and then, again, each department could be different. If you work in the admin office, is there a time that it's so critical to where? if
Is
you
it
live-
ratio? You never know.
You could, yeah.
But again, she could operate via telephone until she got here.
Yeah, so I would think that we leave it at 16, and then unless there's a legal issue with it, if there was a case-by-case basis, we could discuss it and authorize it
I think
in
you
the
get
city.
into trouble there,
You do,
honestly.
You do, that's when you get wishy-washy, you either make a rule or you don't have a rule.
because if you let somebody at 18.
We'll go to 18, then we'll go to 20, then we'll go to
And then
22,
the
and then,
next one
And then you
go
have another
grant,
employee
you
that's
know.
at
Yeah,
.1 under that and
Yeah.
say, well, why not me?
yeah.
right.
No,
Playing
I
favorites.
could not recommend that, Jason.
No.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
you're just inviting trouble.
I agree. So then now it begs, how do you enforce that? Because if there is indeed an issue, we need to make assure that it's being enforced.
Well,
Yes.
do they have a certain amount of time though to get it within that limit, or do they have to be
I
when
think
they're
it's a
hired?
time
I
limit,
think
right?
they got,
Within 6 months?
6 months,
Yeah.
some cases it's been extended.
Is that,
I'm not a big fan of just hard line
no.
miles. If a guy lived, and I'm not gonna debate what's reasonable. Is 16 and a half reasonable? Is 20 reasonable?
I think 16's too far, to tell you the truth, for
Well,
somebody who needs
I
to be
tell
here.
you the reason that I'm a little bit willing to look the other way. I think one of the things that the city has to do is look, see how fast the individual can respond. And we're looking to hire qualified individuals. And I'm not gonna hire the best candidate because he lives 20 miles. Makes no sense to
I
me.
understand that, but when it comes to the safety of the city of Oglesby and to its people who live here, I want to make sure that people who we've hired to work to protect that safety and health and everything else, that they can get here timely. So if 16 miles is it, I'm
16 miles is the rule, that's the rule we'll have to
okay
follow.
with it. I
I'll
just
be
wanna
honest,
make sure
I'm a
we
little
enforce it.
disheartened to hear that that's not something that we can't make a waiver for on special case circumstances or something.
No.
Well, maybe it would be, again, as I said.
That's how that
If-
law
I know.
got in there, or the ordinance
if
got
the
in there.
distance
Made
can't-
one special circumstance, and now that's why it's there.
Mr. Berry, what do you think about if, would the time be something that'd be more acceptably waiverable? Or is it the whole thing, you allow something, anything for anybody, it becomes a problem elsewhere?
I don't think the time is gonna be very definable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on, it might be this much time in traffic, it might be this much time at 3 in the morning, it's not gonna be the same.
If I drive like
Oh, no,
NASCAR,
I
I'll be
meant,
there
I meant, I
faster,
meant the
you know.
time, I meant the time allowed for them to move if they were accepted as an
I think
employee.
something you could do is get rid of the 16 miles and decide it on a case-by-case basis with the employees you're interviewing to fill that position. And you could determine that, that is not an acceptable distance to get here for this particular job because it's time sensitive.
If
On
we-
a different job, a different type of job in the clerk's office, it might be.
Well, let me ask
Okay.
you this, if we don't have it in the contract, and I say this because when we were looking for electric people, there were people that lived out in, on the East Coast that were interviewing for the position and stuff like that. So,
They're certainly not gonna come
true,
commute every day from the
true,
East
but if,
Coast,
but if
so
we
they're
take,
gonna
but
move
if we
here.
take, but if we take out that requirement, is it legal to say, I hire you on the premise that you are moving within this amount of distance? Because if we take it out of the contract, can I now make that a requirement of employment, that within 6 months, you will move with this amount of time if it's not in the contract?
I think you can, as long as you got the 16 miles in your ordinance, yeah.
But that's what I'm
Maybe
saying.
not in the contract, but in the ordinance.
But why would-
You can put the mileage in your job descriptions, if that's what you wanted to differentiate. That's an important part of it.
Yes, you'd have to put it someplace.
Yeah, we had a guy who put an application in from India for the park department. Come on.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is if you don't have the requirement, so when they move to the area, you've already hired them, and now they move 40 miles away.
Yeah.
But you can give them an extension on the 16 miles, is what, I think they've already done it, so.
Right, they have. But it's still the 16 miles is the
Yeah.
expectation.
16 miles right now.
All right.
Okay, discuss options for solar facility. We've been working for the last year and a half, trying to get a solar facility in Oglesby. Trying to do something at the college with the push for green energy. We just need to look to get by to examine all possible locations. Somebody suggested down on the north side of the old landfill, there's probably at least 100 yards to the south of the fence. Could be a possible place.
We have a spot, what is that, east of the fire station that's been
Mhm.
surveyed and designed, so I don't know why we wouldn't go with that one first, but.
Because I'd look for another spot, because the one behind the fire station could only be a half a megawatt. We could get a little bit more, I'd like to get at least a full megawatt.
Oh, so what benefit do we get out of this is my next question, because when we first did this, I didn't see much benefit, and we had to be the ones to lease the property, so that's why I'm,
Well,
What
I
are they
think
giving us, you know?
Basically, right now, if we would get a solar facility, our cost would be to set up the transformer and integrate it into our system. The people that would put it up would pay the cost. We would benefit because of the green energy credits would go to all the IMEA municipalities. We'd share in it, just as we share today with those municipalities that have gone to it. One of the negatives that in our transmission district is that we still have to pay a toll on what's generated. hopefully that will be resolved. Uh, With this closing of baseload plants, I just think it's in our interest to really look and pursue this.
Do we know what dollar amounts those shared green energy, credits come out to be?
I can't give you an amount off the top of my head.
They are lucrative. The problem is the way we have an agreement with the IMEA that we're not allowed to do that. That's why the one Tommy was talking about, that was being considered a couple years ago, the council decided kind of against it, and I wasn't on board at the time, but I kind of agree. I think that was probably the right call. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been trying to pursue stuff with the college, because then there's added benefits to getting part of the college and working with them in other ways. It increases economic development in the area and things like that. We just had a conference call today, and I got to ask a very uncomfortable question to the IMEA as I got to compare us to some other municipalities in the IMEA that have some generation type facilities. Now, this isn't just solar, this is other things they have, whether diesel or hydro or whatever and stuff like that. So we are gonna get to have this sparked another conversation to where they're coming down next week and we can talk about some stuff. Is anything gonna come out of that? I don't know. Well, I would love for us to be able to have some form of generation that the city actually owns. That way we can do some peak shaving or find something that's going to allow us to reduce costs not only to the city, but then to residents as well. And that's become very difficult lately. So I think Dom has this on here to talk about, just to make people aware that we're working hard with trying to find a way to get solar into the city.
If there's an opportunity to decrease cost to our residents, I would like to seriously
Well,
look at that.
This is what we're getting hammered with now. And everybody is hollering about the high cost of generation. By closing these fossil plants, Ameren has to upgrade their transmission lines, their transmission grid. It cost us $6 in tolls to move a megawatt. Mid-America, because they haven't been affected by the closing of a lot of these fossil stations, and they got that big nuclear station sitting in their backyard, it's $3 a megawatt. We're competing against that. And the Ameren customers, what I'm told, are gonna see a pretty good bump come June. But that isn't doing Oglesby any good in April,
Yeah.
or March, or February, because we were getting our butts kicked. And I'm just looking for ways. And the other part that I'm an advocate of green energy, it might bring somebody in here, a plan in here, or some business in here. There are companies that look for locations or communities that are willing to step up. And I'm just trying to find a way where we can benefit the city. I don't have the final answer. The next one on the agenda is discuss how to promote charging stations within the city. I'm not interested in going into the business of charging stations.
Can I ask why not? Because I'm just thinking downtown Oglesby, why would one business owner pay for that charging station to go in when those people can go to any other business downtown? So why are we making the one business take the risk? Or then are they going to make it like toilets? It's only for people that are customers, and otherwise you can't come use our bathroom, you can't use our charging station.
How costly is it to put one in?
I don't think they're that expensive. I really don't. I have not found an actual dollar amount.
Well,
I've tried to
I
find that,
think
but every other municipality in our area is eating the costs, and they're putting them in. So I don't think we should say, hey, business, you should pay for this.
Did I say business is gonna pay for them?
No. But who is? You said you don't want the city to be involved in it, so
No.
who else is gonna be?
No, and maybe if I misspoke. I'd rather, if we can, first of all, I don't wanna put a charging station in back of City Hall and sit there and nobody use the thing. I don't have the expertise where to locate them. I would think probably out by the interstate would be something. Would it be better to have a company, come in and lease the stations or whatever they do? I don't know. I don't have that expertise to make that comment. You know, we gotta there's, just like anything else, there has to be, you know, you gotta have the traffic, you gotta, the charging stations, is it 30 minutes, is it an hour, is it 20 hours, or 8 hours? I have no idea. I do know in some communities up in the suburbs, I think St. Charles is one of them. If you go downtown and park and go for dinner or whatever, it's free. I'm not looking to do that, but I think we need to investigate, come up with something that's workable for Oglesby, and try to go that way.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to work with some different vendors and businesses that operate these. I think the big question would be, if they were to come into Oglesby, where's their different areas they could go? They have the downtown area, they have the area where the hotels are, and then they have the area where the interstate is. All of those have different types of benefits to Oglesby. One helps make more business in downtown, the other one makes there more use for the hotels, and the other one is trying to catch people on the interstate. I don't know which one is necessarily better, but I think if we talk with some other vendors and businesses that operate that, depending on what level that they would like to come into the city, depending on what we could get out of it, maybe that's something that we would partner with them in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying I won't ever have my electric department managing a charging station necessarily, or do anything like that, but if there's something that we partner with them to maybe get them started to come here, because it boosts economic development. By the way, I should have put that on here. Talk about economic
developer?
talk about economic developer. I didn't do that, unfortunately. But I think that all kind of ties in.
I would be interested into knowing, you know, where the thoughts were for placement and cost for installation and then upkeep.
So I view this as the next parking meter, because if the GM really goes to all electric in the next, 15 years, which I would be blown away, but it's a parking meter. So we're gonna lease it for somebody, and then we're not gonna re-lease it, and we're gonna have them rip up all the infrastructure, and we're gonna have somebody other guy
So-
lease it.
So you
And then
had,
second of all,
No, you're saying we're gonna do this. I don't think anybody here has any idea how to do it. That's what I want us to find out. How can we get further on down the road and then just talk about it?
I'm gonna go get some quotes here next week, or this week.
I will tell you one thing when you talked about price. I don't know necessarily the prices, but I know there is a significant difference between, they have the ones that are like the trickle chargers, the one that take a longer time and stuff like that, and the ones that are the superchargers. There is a huge difference in startup costs between the two.
Sure.
So, I mean,
And my view is, so downtown is, we wanna bring everyone downtown, give them any reason,
Yep.
which would be that.
Yep.
Hotels, they own the hotel. I hope they can splurge here and get their own if they really are worried about that kind of clientele. And the flyby people on the interstate, it's just like Love's, will get the sales tax from them buying a soda at Love's, and that's about it,
So
so.
would it not be a good idea just to at least get the information and
Yeah,
disseminate?
Oh,
Here's
yeah.
what we're looking at, folks, you know, and
Definitely.
to have some consistency between 39, the hotels, downtown, further down.
no, I think it's a good idea to get some ideas and have people come in and, present something to us. Again,
And what's the cost to operate over time?
to operate over time,
Yeah.
I don't get any of the details of any of that. But again, this is a great economic development related issue.
That being said, let's move on. Ordinance not being enforced, as no signage, etc., no parking with 2 inches of snowfall.
So this is really 3 topics in one. Commissioner Lieski wanted to put something in here about the snowfall. and about how we deal with the no parking and signage for that. And the other thing was, if you remember, a while ago, we made some changes to no parking on signs of the street, and residents wanted us to expand upon that for other types of streets. Well, we started looking at this. I talked to the chief of police a while ago about doing a traffic study. And he was able to, I think it was Officer Shelby Polino. I mentioned her because she did an awful lot of work matching our ordinances to some of the physical things we actually have in the city to kind of point them out. So I figured we'd talk about all three of those there. Do we want to start with the snowfall, since that was kind of,
Oh, not really, I mean, we can. I just know that it has been enforced in the past 5 years, but it hasn't been probably in the last 3 years, enforced. And the reason why it was enforced before is that there is a good reason to have it. The streets departments, they cannot get the streets cleaned appropriately, adequately, when cars are parked there, or park, move. It doesn't work out well to get the streets cleaned, and that's one of the reasons why we want them out there. But two, is we haven't been enforcing them because there are no signs stating that we have this. Now, it is one of our ordinances, but I can't say that people should know everything, every law that we have in the city of Oglesby, because it can be different to LaSalle, to Peru, and wherever they travel. So it bears to question, do we enforce the snowfall? And if we do we have to put up signs everywhere?
so,
I have two suggestions there. One is to sign the entrances to the
Yeah.
city, and the other is for Amy to put a note on the utility bills in the fall before the season hits. Just a reminder, no parking, during 2-inch snowfall. Maybe you do that already, Amy, but that's what I've seen happen in other towns, and then just start to enforce it. The word will get out pretty quickly when you start to enforce it.
so does that make it to where, because I remember our previous city attorney said you might have a problem if it's not on that specific street. So if we were to put that to the entrances
Yeah.
of the city, is that something that, if I can only put up 4 or 5 signs and call it good for the whole city, would that be something
But
that's,
I think it gets to Carrie's point. People are gonna forget, they're not gonna know all your ordinances, they drive in and out of the city every day and they don't look at that sign. You wanna try to be fair to them, so giving them notice every year in the fall, hey, it was on your utility bill,
yeah, I talked to my street department about this, and
like that.
the problem, it's not often. It does happen. The response I got from them is they're able to work with the police and generally be able to work something out. But I think it does become, it's actually probably more of a problem for police because it's the enforcement issue of it. So, I mean, if that's something that we can do, just putting it up in a few spaces, coming into town and putting it out once on our utility bills, that'd be fantastic.
Plus, I believe that this form
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
follow the ordinance.
that's the next item to talk
All
about.
right, you go.
Well,
Okay.
Okay, so if we're cleaning up ordinances compared to rules, do we need to debate them, which one we're doing, or why?
Well, okay, so let me
We
talk
should
about,
be able to just go with the more strict one, I'm okay with that.
what do you mean?
So if the wording's not matching right, we can work that out. I don't think we need to debate which wording we
Yeah.
choose, that kind of thing, is what I'm saying.
Oh, you mean on the signs?
On
Yeah, I don't care about that.
where there was something here, hang on.
Yeah, I got them highlighted. So here's the thing. So they were able to point out some things that we
Yeah,
have that are
like-
differences.
So not in the ordinances, put that in there, that's fine, whatever.
My concern, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is, just because it's in the ordinance, if they've been like this for 20, 30 years, if I have my street department go out and just do all these fixes, people are gonna start thinking that we
Yeah.
changed a whole bunch of stuff, and we never did.
And
So-
we're charging $10 tops here, so $5 within 48 hours.
So that's the
So
problem.
how many fines do we have to get before these signs are paid for here? Next question.
Well, so we can talk about that first. So yeah, if you look at what we have on our police department thing here, we are given $5
Except
for
for
fines,
snowfall.
goes up to $10 if they don't do it after 48 hours, and then, except for snow violations of 25. We have here highlighted, where is it? 10.24.075, no parking zones. B, any person violating this section shall be subject to a fine not less than $25 and not more than $500. and our current tickets are $5 and $10. So obviously, there's a conflict there. Then it gets even funnier. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of where it is something different for certain streets. Certain streets are not less than $50, no more than $500. There's even 2 of them that are not less than $100, no more than it's spelled wrong, no more than $500. So I don't know if that's a debate. I don't know why they were created that way. Was there a bigger problem on some of the, and there's streets that don't even make any sense to me, like Hazen. Why is that one so much more?
Some commissioner probably lived on that street.
God, that'd be so sad if that's what happened, really. So I think that's part of so do we want to talk about that? What do we want to do about the fines? Do we want to standardize it? Do we need to just change the forms for the police department, or do we need to
I
change
think we
the?
need to make them realistic.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the first set of ordinances in 1914.
Oh, does it say that on that?
No, but
Oh,
I
you-
have a copy of them.
Oh, you looked it up?
No, I have a copy of them. Were set to be not less than $5, but no more than $500 back in 1914. So I
Wow.
have a history there, but, but
So-
I don't have a solution.
$5 back then, man.
$5 was a lot
Yeah.
in 1914.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the easy thing to do would be just change our police department form, perhaps, to match the 25, and that would solve that. I don't know what you want to do about these very specific streets that are unique.
Are there schools on those streets maybe, Jason?
One of them is.
Yeah.
One is. That's, the first one, that's $100, is vehicular standing, stopping, or parking shall be prohibited on the west side of School Avenue from Porter Street south to Florence Street in the city. Any person who violate this subsection shall be subject to a fine of not less than $100, no more than $500. And then the other one,
Because it creates a safety hazard.
yeah. Oh, I wonder if Hazen is that way too. If-
Yep,
That's what I thought,
because that's
Jason.
over by,
Yeah, that's
Holy
probably
Lincoln.
it.
family.
That must be why, because of the parking to pick the kids up. All right, at least there's a reason
Well,
behind it now, I guess, but.
Is Columbia one of those roads? Because
it
that'd
is-
be great.
Columbia
We
is,
can't enforce Columbia, it's a state road.
interestingly enough, yes, there is.
I don't see Columbia. I don't think is parking allowed on Columbia anyways? I don't think it is. Is it?
Oh, right before they pick up kids from school, they're out
Well,
of the way
that-
of my house.
Well,
So-
that's the whole problem in the first place, that we probably need to,
Both sides of Florence Street from Columbia to Woodland,
yeah, so I don't know where these other ones for $50 are.
yeah.
I don't know if they should be changed or left alone or what. But I think the easy thing to be solve some of these $5 and $10 tickets is just change the form to say 25.
Yeah,
And be
standardize
done
them.
with it.
Okay, so the other ones, I wanted to at least mention, and if no commissioner has a problem with it, I figured I'll give this meeting, and then to the end of next meeting, if no resident comes and says there's an issue with it, I could say that they've been at least informed, and then I can have the signs go up. So if you'd like, I'll read them off quickly, and I'm not reading all of them off, though. First one, there should be no parking permitted along the side of Jones Avenue from Mormon Street to Crockett Street. Currently, there's only parking on east side. There shall be no parking anytime prohibited alongside of Lehigh Avenue from Pool Drive to Walnut Street. Currently, there's cars parked on both sides, and there's no signs posted. Parking of vehicles on the south side of Florence Street from Woodland Avenue west of Columbia Avenue is unlawful and forbidden. And then there's a problem where another place says parking shall be prohibited along both sides, and there's only signs on the south side. So technically, I guess I'd have to put it on both. Parking of the vehicles on the north side of Moore Street from Bennett Avenue to Wyatt Street is prohibited from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. daily. There are no signs on either side. Next one is parking shall be prohibited on North Avenue from the intersection of Porter Street to Florence Street where North Avenue intersects with driveway for a roadway. No sign. It is unlawful to park any vehicle or permit a vehicle to remain parked on the east side of School Avenue from the intersection of Porter Street to Florence Street for a period longer than 24 consecutive hours. There's no parking sign this side only, no time limits. Parking shall be prohibited along both sides of School Street from First Street to Walnut, no signs. Parking shall be prohibited from both sides of Morris Street from Swift Avenue to Columbia, no signs. Parking shall be prohibited on and along the west side of Glen Avenue from the intersection of Glen Avenue and Walnut Street to the intersection of Glen Avenue and Forest Street, no sign. Parking shall be prohibited on and along the north side and south side of Moore Street from the intersection of Columbia and Moore Street to the intersection of Wyatt and Moore Street, no sign. And then the last one, vehicular, prohibited on both sides of Pool Drive from Trexler Avenue to Lehigh Avenue and on Lehigh Avenue from Pool Drive to Walnut Street and the east side of only along Trexler Avenue and Walnut Street to Pool Drive, no signs. Those are the last ones that don't have signs. So that's why I thought I'd ask here. If nobody has an issue with that, I figured we'd go with enforcement. So that way, we can say we've standardized our ordinances to make sure our signs match our ordinances.
Not in that area, doesn't look like.
Well, that's why I thought there was one. So there's, for example, there,
East
on
side.
both sides. It says repeat as above, no signs. That's what I got.
think you-
Well, I mean, we'll verify it.
Shouldn't be.
It wasn't both sides, it's always been the east side. They've always parked on the west side. Since I was
All right, I'll tell you what,
Mhm.
well, I'll tell you what, I will look at that one.
Verify it, but it says on both sides.
I'll verify that. So that's the thing, the reason I wanted to take the time to mention those is I didn't want residents thinking that we were making some kind of change to an ordinance without anybody being aware of it. That's what the ordinance already says. So I'd like to standardize that. If anybody's got an issue with that, please either let me know, come in the next council meeting, or write in an email and we'll read off your concern.
Let's go to number 12, smart meters.
So I put this on here, I'm just all about efficiency and, you know, making stuff easier, better, faster, so I was wondering if we could start really jumping into the smart meters, both water and electric, now that water supposedly they work right and they're good to go.
They do work right? I didn't get that word. The guy's coming out on Wednesday again to take a look at
Okay,
it.
well, maybe was
Yeah.
a little confused there, I thought they were working better now, but maybe not, but
They
on
might-
the electrical side, either way, I feel like we should start.
I can get you a better answer. I'm gonna go to the meeting on Wednesday, so I'll
Okay.
get you a better answer if there were, they might be working better, but I'm told, like, for example, there's some that just got installed, and they're not, the
Okay.
automatic reading is not working yet. And then I know there's issues that's not connecting properly to the billing system. And I know the whole idea for this, and this was designed years ago that they wanted to go to this system, and it's just not, I don't think it's working as efficiently as we had planned.
No.
You know, the idea is to reduce the number of man-hour, I mean, we have a credible amount of man-hours that we do on meter readings, that's supposed to be next to nothing. So,
Isn't part of the problem is the signal from the water meters is weak because some of them have been in so long.
in part, yes, Mayor. That is in part of the problem, but even the ones that are well within the distance that should be close to one of the smart meters to pick it up are not working properly, as last I heard. And the guy's coming to talk about that.
Yeah, they gotta be able to talk to work.
So how about
We
I
talked
get-
about bulk pricing, so that's why.
Yeah, I remember I
Another
asked that
thing.
question, because I remember I asked that question about a year ago when I met him and said, hey, if we bought a whole bunch of these for the whole town, would we get a deal? They're like, no. I'm like, well, then I don't have any motivation to buy a
Well,
whole
I was
bunch
told
then.
that if we buy 500, we will get a little bit off, so.
The-
Make sure you ask him
The
about it
salesman,
again,
I will
yes.
definitely mention that to him and see what he says. But how about I give an update on, under old business next meeting on that then?
Okay.
All right.
That's all I
Okay,
had.
go down, the next one is discussion on using, MFT funds for future street zone purchases.
So the reason I wanted to talk about this, and I know I talked to the finance commissioner about it, and it probably is a good idea to do, but I want to make people aware of something. So I found out that when we do our motor fuel tax resolutions, we can add our salt purchases to that. Well, the city goes through about $50,000 worth of salt every year. So we only get, I want to say it's about 120 to 150,000 in motor fuel tax funds every year, which is a good amount. But right now, we use that money to repair roadways and different things like that. My concern, I shouldn't even say concern, I want to make the council aware that if we were to go to start using motor fuel tax funds to purchase $50,000 worth of salt every year, that eventually, because we are appropriations-based, that would probably make it look like our street department is operating $50,000 more efficiently. But it's really not. We're taking it from someplace else. And I just don't want people to understand, because I know once the city starts doing that, hey, we'll probably do that forever. And I just want to make sure you're aware that that would take away $50,000 a year that we utilize for our street maintenance that we use for different projects.
But
And I
then
think-
next year's
Jason?
appropriation be less, so.
Since you mentioned this to me, it came as a shock, quite frankly,
Mhm.
because with all the municipalities I've worked with, they have never been able to purchase salt with their motor fuel tax funds. So I know you said somebody told you that. Was that from the Department of Transportation?
I don't wanna throw our city engineer
it
under
you,
the
Jim?
bus. It was one of his employees.
You check with Jim, because Colin and I check the Department of Transportation's website for approved uses of motor fuel tax, and purchasing salt is not listed. So we just need to make sure, Jim. Yeah.
So we go through about 700 tons a year. We've already purchased 120. We have another 500 something tons to get. So I actually told them, hold off. We have to have it by June 30th because I wanted to talk about it here. And if we want to do that, we can go ahead and try to purchase that this year with a resolution that we do. I
I
guess
just think we're so far behind road-wise anyway, we
I-
might as well just take it out of the general, because
it's true. I mean,
in the
we,
grand scheme of things, the amount of money we get from NFT or MFT is not that much compared to what road projects we could have right now.
correct.
and that kind
My,
of
my
stuff.
thing is, so the street department, because they don't have a revenue stream, they operate out of the general fund anyways. So, so I mean, the good news is, yeah, it makes us put 50, anytime you can put more money into the general fund, fantastic. I mean, yes, we would still be able to have to pay for, any street maintenance more out of the general fund. I just want to make sure that the council's aware of that, because if we make this change, and if one of the engineers are, probably texting them right now, are you sure that's legal? So, but if that is the case, and we can do that, I just want to make people aware that that's probably something that the city will continue well beyond our time here, if it's gonna put $50,000 more into the general fund. So, all right, so I want to make you aware, that's it.
Okay, so move on now. Continued discussion on homes built since 2005 and are out of sidewalk code / ordinance. And, we've had some, discussion with some homeowners that built homes in the last couple of years, and, they have not been cooperative on complying with this code and with this ordinance. One way we can address it coming down the road, that they don't get their occupancy okay until it's done. But that's in the future. How do we go back and handle some of those people now? And we do have homes that have been built, landscaping has been done, where it would be almost impossible to conform.
That's unfortunate that landscaping was done in the area that they knew that they were supposed to build a sidewalk. And I would have no problem with their removing their landscaping, because at least one of the homes I know that you're talking about, I don't believe that the sidewalk installation would even come within 2 feet of the landscaping, maybe not. but-
And they definitely knew about it
They
before
did.
they put the landscape again.
Yes, they did.
Another
Correct.
key fact.
So again, I have no problem with them going into their landscaping to comply with the ordinance. I guess we can do this, we could fine them on a monthly basis, weekly basis, however often. But again, that's-
Do we have to, draw a line that anybody within this scope has to?
I think we should figure out how many of those houses are out there first.
Yeah.
I think probably what we have to
'Cause
do
there's
is
40 to
go-
50, man, good
go-
luck.
Go identify them and take a look at
And we have
how
to-
we can resolve the problem. The one resident, she was quite vocal in her position, and it's, hey, you just can't,
It's not a
say no.
position.
you know,
It's our
there's some
ordinance.
people that, you know, just looking to be fair. Let's take a realistic look, let's identify the ones and move forward.
Yeah, I think that line needs to be the 2005. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's homes that are built before then that I'd prefer there to be sidewalks because kids have to walk around or go on the street. That's gonna be a whole other ball of wax, but people that built since 2005 knew they were supposed to do this and didn't do it. I think that's, you know, it's a safety issue. I think we need to enforce it.
But I think some of the subdivisions might have special wording as well.
So, correct,
I
there,
think we have to be careful on what on what subdivision was developed and how it was developed.
Yeah, I'm sure there are certain subdivisions that don't have that same rule. I know, for example, like, this was a sticking point for me before we even got here, was I think the new hospital thing got special approval to not the hospital, the clinic that went up. They got special approval to not have to do it. At least they got approved. You know, you can make that argument.
That's not a home.
Correct, it's not a home.
So, and we're saying about homes built.
So what I'm saying is if there's something out there for like a subdivision that had special approval to where they didn't have to do it, different story.
We need to know it, but I guess what we first need to know is we need to have a listing of the homes that were built since 2005, so we can take a ride by and
And a
see.
plot map, so we can.
We should do that. Let's-
identify where they are.
Maybe that's our next step we do. I can see if we can find, let's identify every home that's built since that ordinance came out and is in violation. Because I don't know if we're talking 10, I don't know if we're talking 50.
I think we should look at location too, because I don't want a sidewalk going down that end highway, but maybe you guys do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those houses are just built.
And you know what, if you do,
No, I
you
agree.
really want, you want it to be an elevated path or
Yeah.
something that has, you know, like what they're doing in the bridge between Starved Rock and Utica. You want something special if you're gonna mandate that. I
Yeah.
agree. There has to be some consideration to that.
Just because it relates, I looked something up today, because the Safe Route to School program is something that I talked with NCICG about when we first got on council. The application for it was already in. They did not do it last year because of COVID and stuff. There's not a deadline, but it is coming back online again fall of 2021. Take that for what it's worth. It might
Okay,
get delayed about
yeah.
20 times, but
And
that's
I
what I got.
guess going forward, I like your idea that they do not get approval to have
You gotta
occupancy.
have some way to control it, but it's what's already,
And I
Yeah.
suggested to Dom and Jason, when I talked to them about this issue, that I think it needs to be on your building permit application, and it needs to be bolded, so that the contractor, the landowner is well
Everybody's
aware,
aware.
you're not gonna get your occupancy permit unless the sidewalk's in place, or because of weather conditions, finishing a house in the middle of January or something, it might not be feasible. Enough money has to be escrowed with the city in order to allow for the construction of that sidewalk in the
Correct.
spring if they don't do it.
I agree with that.
And Jason, I think maybe Amy's building permit files might give you all of the new construction information you need to identify those houses since 2005. Just a suggestion.
okay, moving on to 15. Discussion on the possibility of going out for bond or other options for Columbia Walnut water mains.
So I put this on here. This might be a sticky wicket for people to disagree with me on or not, but our Rebuild Illinois grant, those results should have been here in the fall, at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, first quarter, and now being told second quarter. I know it's taken a while. I will tell you that the organization the department part of the state that's responsible for it had a whole bunch of other things to do first, and they have completed them. So I do actually expect the results to come out soon. I don't know, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, hope for the best is great, but I'm really concerned that, to be honest, I'm really even concerned that if we do get it, that we're gonna be able to have time to now get everything in, with what the state is looking to do with Columbia next year. But either way, I say this because if it does not come in approved, I truly believe we need to take some action to see what we can do to solve it. And the cost is huge. The Columbia portion is about 2.4 million, and the Walnut portion is about 800,000. Now, this is where the debate comes in. Do we go out for bond for the whole thing? Probably a good idea. However, we were already gonna earmark 800,000 to, of that of the 3.2 million to get the grant in the first place. The portion for Walnut is already 800,000. Now, you could make different arguments of what it is, and I know the 2.4 million one, we already have like 26, 28 breaks along that road, and we'll probably have to continue to fix things. The real critical one, in my opinion, though, is Walnut. There is about a quarter mile to a half mile section of the city that if we get a water main break on Walnut in that area, the city has to shut down to solve it, which means we have to close, the college has to close, schools have to shut down, businesses have to close. That is something that I feel we are doing the residents and businesses a disservice if we don't find a permanent solution for that. So, that's where I'm kind of asking, what is people's opinions on this? Is this something that we think that we should already prepare to go out for bond for?
So I believe this grant's part of the capital bill.
Correct.
That the fire hydrants are part of, that we were just told it might be 5 years for, so I
So-
think we should not even hope to win it, because we're not gonna get the money even if we do win it.
So I will say
It's
this.
Illinois here.
You're right, it is. Here's one of the things I'm learning about the capital bill, and it's really, boy, oh boy,
It's
Illinois.
right before an election, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Illinois has got me frustrated for many reasons, but one of them is this capital bill, some elements seem to get paid over others, and I still do not understand that. For example, we've had this fire hydrant thing approved for almost 2 years now. That portion hasn't been paid. However, the first round of people for the Rebuild Illinois grants that got approved, those were also in the capital bill. Some of those have been paid already. So I don't know why certain parts of capital bills get paid and other parts don't. That's beyond my level of understanding. I don't grasp it. I'm not happy with it. But when I see that, though, that makes me believe if we did get the Rebuild Illinois grant, it more than likely would get paid.
I'm just thinking we should take the 800,000, put it in Walnut now and get it over with, because that, by the time they figure it out, it'll be 2022 probably, so.
So are you saying?
That's when they'll probably approve it, let alone, we'll figure out the money, give us another couple.
Well,
years.
obviously, I don't want to do any kind of action until, we'd be fools to throw away $2.4 million, obviously. I don't want to do the work on it and then all of a sudden become ineligible for the grant and they say we got it. You know what I mean?
3 years from now, when they actually give us the money, and we've had 3 water main breaks that shut the city down between now and then, I am not believing in the Illinois at all here. I don't know why we're even wasting our time
The
talking
funny
about
thing is when we
grants.
put in for this grant, which was, I want to say it was last summer, almost of last year. If we would have put in for this grant last summer and somebody would have told me, by the way, you're not going to get results for over a year, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and fix it. But now we're at the point to where we are days, weeks away, hopefully, from getting some kind of results. I think we should wait to take action, but my question would be, from what I'm understanding is I'm thinking you're leaning towards put the 800,000 into Walnut because it's critical, but then my question is, what's everybody's thoughts on Columbia?
We're gonna have to wait.
Well, the state, I cannot get the state, I have begged and pleaded, and the state has pushed everything off as far as they can. They are looking please correct me if I'm wrong, April, I don't know if that means started or finished. I think they want to start by April of next year. That is a very short time for us to get a water main completed in that roadway. So that's why I'm asking, we're gonna get a brand new brand new highway through town, and guess what? We're gonna keep chopping that sucker up.
I'd put 800,000 towards that, but from what I understand here, the critical part's the Walnut part. So I'm more worried
That
about
is
losing the whole town than the nice road that will eventually destroy either way, probably, so.
Correct, and boy, oh boy, I hope somebody from the state is listening to this. I know the agencies don't, but, I'll be honest, if the state doesn't want to approve us for the grant, I have a lot less compassion about chewing up their road than to get to our water main.
I don't know if they're that worried about it either, but
Well, I'm told there's different agencies that deal with stuff, so the agency that approves the grants probably doesn't even talk to the people that manage the road.
Okay.
You wanna move on to number 16, discussion on authority and a new ordinance means to approve non-residential water customers.
So we've talked about this in the past. There's some properties in the city. Oh, I forgot to bring that sheet of paper with me. There's 38 homes that get water directly to them that are not that are inside the city limits. So in other words, there's 38 homes that have water directly to their homes. I'm not counting Jonesville or Piety Hill. That's a whole other section. But 38 homes that get water directly to them that do not pay taxes into the city. So right now, we have residents that are, not residents, we have homes that are getting water, and our ordinance does not specify how they get water. The only evidence I have is in the past, a commissioner took it upon themselves to make things happen. Back in 1996. I know we're going back quite a ways, and we're talking about authority of commissioners. I know that individual commissioner meant for the best. He had the best of intentions, but I think by him acting on his own and not with a council decision, I think it put the city in a bad situation to where now we're supplying more people with water that are never gonna wanna become residents of the city to pay taxes. It's my recommendation that I'd like to remove that authority from that specific commissioner, and right now, that commissioner is me. I'd like to make that a council decision of how people, or I shouldn't say people, how certain homes could possibly get on the city's water supply.
I have no problem with that particular thing, but I guess, you know, that's going forward. But, you know, which we can always make things better looking forward, but what can we do with those 38 homes?
Well, you can't, you're gonna have to continue to
Yeah.
serve them.
And I do think you serve them under two different tiers of
Yeah.
charges.
Correct.
They pay
Just to
twice
let
as
you know.
much.
They do,
All
They
right.
do pay more.
they do pay more, but they don't pay as much as it's worth for them to pay the taxes into the city. That's why they prefer that.
No.
But financially, why would they ever come in to pay our taxes? The only way that will ever happen is their well fails.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna hold out for wells failing, until then, I'd rather get paid on that water line that we're using anyway. We might as well get a couple more houses on and make some more revenue.
So you're talking about, but, yeah,
So
so
maybe we would approve it still, but
Yeah.
it would be a council decision.
Yeah.
all I'm saying is I'd prefer it to be taken out of that commissioner's ability to do that. I mean, I don't think people understand how the potential of a real problem we have here. There is city water lines that are underneath roadways that the city doesn't own. If those lines were to break, I don't even know what kind of legal mumbo jumbo problem we would have that the city's gotta come in and start breaking up roads that we
Well,
don't even own.
It'd probably just be like Columbia, though.
Well, at least Columbia's inside the city limits, though.
Well, that's a state road.
Yeah, so Columbia's a,
Can't even
Columbia,
let golf carts on it. Come
well,
on. here.
Columbia's a funny situation because technically if we do any road work on it, we have to get the permission, unless it's an emergency. Then we just go ahead and do it. The problem is these township roads that are not inside city limits, we are under those roadways. That brings up a whole other topic. Again, he had the best of intentions, but we have a commissioner that's taken his own authority to just stick water lines under other people's roadways. I'd like to prevent that from happening in the future.
And there's no intergovernmentals?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I can't find anything on it.
No? Okay.
That's
probably what we should do.
Really in this one particular subdivision, where you've got eight out of 12 homes that have water. And the question comes up, you know, what about the other 4? They're willing to pay the tap-on fee, they're willing to do everything. You know, it's something that probably should have been addressed years ago. You got 8 homes that have it, you got 4 that do not. And I may be off 1 or 2 on the number. The Buffalo boxes are there, so the question is, does the council wanna okay them to tap on?
I would say no if they're not paying city taxes, but I'd be willing to relinquish that authority and make it a council decision. Because that way I'm protecting from, I mean, let me put it this way. We're talking about authority and spending. What is stopping me from spending $19,900 every 2 weeks and extending water lines out past the city to create water to a new subdivision that's never gonna pay tax in the city? Because I feel that's what happened 30 years ago.
Well, I
Exactly what happened. Exactly what
You're
happened.
right. You're exactly right. It did happen. And the people that made that decision 30 years ago had the best intention.
Yeah.
I believe that.
So, all right, so
Let's
There
I'll
might have
get,
been some questionable morals, but
There-
we can
there-
always move on.
there could be, but I'm not gonna question what, you know, I try to believe that people have the best of intentions and everything. So what I'll do then is I'll
Approve it
start,
Going forward, that's
yep, I'll start working on seeing if we can put together an ordinance that'll limit that authority and put it to the council.
The next one is, status update on a number of cats allowed within the city limits currently being handled by the police department.
Wow.
I do have a little bit of an update. So, there was a contractor that went into the house and he called Ivar about the conditions, and now Ivar again is trying to get her to remove the cats. I'm gonna guess this isn't gonna actually do anything, but
When did that happen?
I,
I just got a phone call about 4:25 today.
Okay.
so
Hot
probably
off the
last
press.
week.
All right, I do know that, just a little history, we got the first complaint from a neighbor in June of 20. A complaint again from another neighbor in August of 20. Police going out there in September and November. It was still just overpowering urine smell. I know I certainly wouldn't want to live next door to her. She's had a couple of, there's been 6 or 7 trips to her home since June of 20 regarding the complaint, the number of cats. She has been given only 2 citations. The last one was issued on January of 21. Not that I want this to be where I go down, this is what I'm known for is the cat problem in Oglesby, but, I guess I'm looking at how frequently do we attempt to go to her home, which she won't answer the door, and certainly won't let us in, and she even refuses certified mail. And in fact, police went to the home of her and her brother individually, and they did not answer the door while both were home, but I believe called and made complaints to City Hall regarding their visit, or to the officer regarding their visit. So, how often do I send police there to check on her and/or give a citation? I believe our last city attorney said that we could do that every week if we wanted to.
I think you can do it every day if you want to, Gary. Maybe that's what you need to capture her attention. I also think you could do a petition for an administrative search warrant to have, the authority of the police department to go in there and check and count the number of cats there. That might capture her attention too, if the police were in her face about the issue.
Well, and I agree with that, and I think perhaps because of the call that you received today from a contractor going to Ivar regarding the situation, perhaps there is a need now
How did
to
the
actually make that.
contractor get involved?
I don't know.
The heating and cooling contractor that was called to do work on her house. And he called Ivar to report the actual conditions of the cats.
Who?
Can't you go in with her not answering the door and that after so long and no response, check the
Wellness check, yeah.
I mean,
It appears we've got some,
it's,
Well, it sounds like you have the evidence from the HVAC contractor
do.
going in there
Yeah.
today and saying there's more than, 3 cats there?
I
Yes.
mean,
There was 30 pages.
there was,
That could be visualized,
Time
Yeah,
to
we-
write another violation, I think. That's all.
yeah, just keep slapping her with it, that's all you can do.
You cited her today, Doug? Yeah.
Well, I agree that we can continue citing her and citing her and citing her, but maybe it is time for a petition for entrance, because concern was brought up, not just from a neighbor from the smell, not just from the police going to her home, but now from a contractor who's been asked to look at their HVAC system.
well, I
That,
imagine she would wanna have that big fun. I guess
After
and
so
maybe
many-
I'm
so many
concerned
tickets,
about her,
can't you get a
Health and
warrant for
well-being.
her?
her health,
yeah.
you know.
Not if you're writing them
I am
under the
too.
ordinance.
So what authority do we have besides just writing tickets every day? What's the maximum we could even do?
Well, I'd need to look at your ordinance. Does it have a graduated fine schedule, 25 to 500? Is it just a flat
think so.
amount per violation?
I think it's a $75 violation.
You know, for those that probably think that we're
Is
getting
that what it
ridiculous,
is, Doug?
She's paying 75 twice.
well,
Well, she starts getting them every day,
this-
it'll start racking up.
it probably sounds terrible to say to start finding every day like it's not compassionate or not, but here's the thing. When somebody's doing something wrong, you have to start looking at the other neighbors. The other neighbors are residents too. So to me, by us not taking action of something stronger, we're just,
Fighting that.
we're not looking out for the residents that are suffering on the sides of her as well. So,
This is a health issue.
it is, if,
It's a health issue in more than,
I mean,
number of
it
ways.
sounds terrible though, but I'd say write in a citation every day if that's if that's the biggest thing we can do to somebody.
Has anybody ever talked to the health department about it?
yes.
Yes?
Have we?
I think that might be a
I-
good thing to,
I was gonna say, I
To
wasn't
try.
aware of that we talked to the health department.
I mean, I don't know that they can do anything, but you gotta push every button you can to
Yeah.
try and get the situation resolved.
And for those that think we're being cruel, just for those that don't follow along all the time, we worked a while, this conversation came up a long time ago, and we were gonna give people time to remove cut. But I'll be honest, if you don't wanna work with us anymore, my goodness.
Well, again, it's more than just the violation of the ordinance, it's for the safety of her as well as for the condition of, I don't know what the cat's conditions are. I'm more concerned for her as an individual, but, yeah. I'm not judging that, I'm just concerned for her health and well-being, as well as the health of the people around her. All right,
Let's move on. The last one is discussion on the forms of local government.
This could either be a very long or very short conversation. I put this on here because about half the items we're talking about comes to authority of people that run the city, us five up here. And again, nothing we can solve here tonight, obviously, but I think the conversation should be at least started. And that question is commission form of government right for the city of Oglesby? And before I got in here 2 years ago, I didn't know much of the difference, but now as more and more time goes on, I'm starting to wonder if it truly is. Commission form of government is fantastic to be able to get things done more cheaply because you have commissioners doing stuff. The problem is, in my opinion, when people are elected to a commissioner, the people are not electing a specific role or responsibility to that individual. They are electing at large for people to be a seat on the council. So, and I'll just pose this question for this scenario. What would have happened if Porter and Cully got elected? There would have been a fight and an argument of who thought they were best for police. What if Danikis and Augerbright got on? You got two people with a financial background. Who's best for that? What if Zabrowski and myself got on? For crying out loud, he's an engineer for the city of Peru. Who's better for street and water? The people don't select that. The council does, and I think that's caused problems over the last several administrations. And I don't know if we're large enough to be commission form of government, and I'd love to hear other people's opinions on that.
and I saw that because of the items that were on the agenda, that I too reached out, and I don't know enough, I was looking for something down and dirty, something simple that says, here's, this form, here's that form. Now let's look at the two, and you're able to discuss, well, this is good here, but it's bad here, and, so what would be the best? And I believe Pat said, and then if there were to be a change, it would have to be on a referendum
It would.
for the, a vote.
So
But-
the same year we're up for reelection, we're gonna have a referendum?
I'm
Well, we didn't
sorry.
say that
So-
we're going there.
Said anything.
No, but I'm just asking, so if we did a referendum, it would be the same time when we're up for reelection, right?
Tom, I really can't answer that.
No, I'm
I don't
asking.
know.
I
Yeah,
believe it
You'd
is.
have to have enough petitioners in town, wanna see it on the ballot, and then, it would be placed on the next city council general election ballot.
So on top of maybe getting a whole new council.
Wait.
Yeah.
For
What?
some reason, they make you do it only in the year before an election.
Oh, okay, so we'd have to.
Before.
But my understanding was if it was an election, now, you were in that situation, top vote getter would normally pick their department.
Right?
But then they always go back to this gentleman's agreement, where it's a buddy-buddy handshake, and,
And it's been that way.
you've been there.
Yeah, the thing about commission form of government, we have it, Princeton has it, and Ottawa has it. And we all operate differently. You can take the commission form of government and modify it and make it work, I guess. You know, why 3 communities within, 20 miles all operate differently?
And I think Streeter is too, Dow, if I remember.
You're
Um,
right.
Carrie Collin did a little research and did find a primer from the Illinois Municipal League. It's very basic. It will not give you what you're looking for, I don't think. But I'll be glad to share this with all of you, because it does compare the aldermanic city form of government, the trustee village form of government, the commission form of government, the manager form of government, and the strong mayor form of government, as if you didn't have enough choices, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming, but you can take a look at them, because it does basically explain the differences.
Sure.
I think what we have to do is, in what we're charged to do, is try to implement the best practices in the interest of the city.
So that would at least be
I
a
look at
review.
Towards that.
That would at least be a review of the different types, you know,
Yeah.
so we can at least
I'll get
start with
this all
that.
out in an email to you guys tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying that one is necessarily better than the other. I'm just saying that the vast majority of, other than funding and infrastructure issues, other than that, a lot of the problems that we've had, are based on because of our form of government. If we had a different one, the authorities that we have and how we spread that out would be done vastly differently. And I think the way that people elect people into positions doesn't match with what the city needs. And that, I just want to start the conversation
We would
on that.
just centralize it pretty much is what I'm getting. And second of all, I think the commission worker form works just great as long as you let the head of your departments run their departments. Because they're here, most of them for a lifetime.
And they're paid to do
And they're paid full-time to do that. Remember that. This is supposed to just kind of be
Yeah,
more of a checks and balances,
that's how I
move the
want
city
it.
forward kind of thing. Is
it's
how
a-
I look at it. I don't want to,
I
well,
agree.
valves and all this
I
other
agree with
great
that,
stuff,
but the problem is, we've had examples, I'm not even gonna try to talk about just our administration, but over the past generations here, to where you'll get a commissioner in there, and he'll have an authority to do something, and he'll do something that'll take the city in a direction, that if he didn't have that level of authority, that direction wouldn't have went. And that's my concern. I think we're too small. You know, it's too easy, I don't know how to say this without being rude. You can easily get a whack job in there when you're electing 4 people. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You can
yeah.
easily get somebody in there that doesn't have the best of intentions for the city. And they have an incredible amount of authority and power that they can do that could affect things for generations to come. That's my concern. In other forms of government, that authority gets limited. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still have, with a strong mayor form of government, you still have to worry about the mayor, but in this form of government, you have to worry about 4 other individuals too.
And
Just
you
food
talked
for
about
thought.
one of those examples tonight, Jason, with the water extensions. You know,
Correct.
And in that particular case, that commissioner probably didn't even have the authority to do that, but nonetheless, he did do it because he might have perceived that he had the authority to do it. And you're living with that problem here, 20, 30 years later.
Correct. I mean, that's over 30 years, that's millions of dollars of lost revenue to the city. That some of those homes might have been annexed into the city if we didn't, you know. But again, that's just one example. There's many examples that we could talk about, and I'm not trying to point fingers or cause stuff, but I want people to think about that so we can continue this conversation.
There was supposed to be a park in that subdivision that they donated to the city, and I'm guessing that had something to do with the water. But then the city decided to sell it, and there's a house on it now. So that might have been another reason why they ran water there. There could have been another.
Yeah, I don't know. I know, they're, yeah.
There's supposed to be one in your subdivision as well. I'm still
Yeah.
waiting for the jungle gym to go up or whatever they're gonna put in there, but.
Again, I'm not trying to make some, I'm just trying to say that a lot of the issues, if you think about over the years, I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't have other issues with a different form of government, but I think that a lot of these problems that we have, some of our biggest arguments and fights that we've had has been based upon the commission form of government because somebody thinks that somebody has taken too much authority in one thing. And the point I'm trying to make is the people might not have elected somebody specifically for that level of authority.
You're just gonna centralize it to one person, and then where do you draw the line of what the city's gonna vote on? Because if we keep going down this road, we're gonna be voting on literally anything and everything.
Yeah,
What kind of tree we're putting in, you know, the park will be.
I know, again, I want to
Let's-
start the
let's
conversation.
move on. Under old business, I have one thing. and that's abandoned properties. We've got a lot at the end of Fitzgerald Street that, the person died, we got the house tore down, and the lot was supposed to be taken care of, the guy died, and we haven't been able to make the necessary progress to get it taken care of. It looks to me that we've got two choices. One is, I think at one time, the estate offered anybody who wanted to buy it could buy it for $1. That didn't seem to materialize. Does the city go in there and level it out, and
So, who owns the property down? The estate?
the estate owns the property?
And who tore down the house?
The state.
The estate.
Okay. And what's the problem now if the house is gone?
Well, it's never been filled in right. Weeds are growing all over the place. Animals are making their homes there across from and next to residents. And it's how do this is the problem. How do we resolve it?
Well, I think we have to take a look at what's going on there that violates which ordinances of yours, and that's gonna control what, if anything, the city can do about it, you know? You could have done something about the unsafe and dangerous condition of the building, but it sounds like that's been dealt with.
That's gone.
So I don't know what kind of ordinances you have in place that would force them to fill in the hole, Dom. I mean, that could be a safety issue. I don't
The
know.
hole is partially filled in, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a lot you can do, honestly, Dom, but I'd have to check your ordinances to see and check
Well,
out the
I'd
situation.
like to, if we can do something to rectify the problem, it's like, this is the problem, how do I resolve the damn thing?
We do have a case that Jim filed that is coming up again, which is the Doran property, the Leighton Doran property. I don't know much
No,
about that file.
That's down over the.
But that's in court,
plant.
and it's ripe for us to get an order to have that property turned over to you. So I assume you wanna move forward with that since you filed the suit?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we have. With that, next on the agenda is public comments.
Kinda confused Dom about number 9. I drove a lot of years back and forth up 39 to the Byron nuclear plant. And those wind turbines, they're 24 hours a day. Sun goes away, sun goes away. You ain't gonna get 24 hours a day out of solar. And those wind turbines, that first group up there, I know the general foreman that was on the job, Gino Catani, and they got 66 of them up there, and they're all still working. And every direction you go from this area, what do you see? You're not seeing solar farms, you're seeing wind turbines. Go take a ride, go over there to Buda Western High School. They got one huge one, and you know what? It powers the whole grounds. And you know what? IVCC got a course for it. So it would be beneficial for everybody. They'd be able to bring their kids out here and maybe do maintenance for free. And they last a long time. The only one I've seen have any trouble is the one up by Amboy, struck by lightning. That's the only one I've heard of within 100 miles.
I can give you an update on that if you'd like. About 3 years ago, there was a discussion about that at the council meeting here. Mayor Finley and somebody else had a conversation about it. This area that we're in is apparently some type of wind tunnel. We don't have clean air in our area for wind power.
Well,
And it's supposed to be so far from
The-
houses, aren't they?
the-
In case
Something
there's-
like that. It's something about our valley that
Very
we're in.
honestly, And you do see a number of, I wanna say wind farms, if that's the proper way to say it. But they're only being built if they're government subsidized. Otherwise, they're not profitable.
well, somebody should go talk to Buda Western because they've had that one power in their grounds over there, and that's a pretty good sizable high school. I mean,
I understand, and they got a pretty sizable grant to build it. Commissioners, you got anything?
I have nothing to report.
Nothing from me.
Go Cubs, go.
No, I'm good today.
We're good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Alderbright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran,
Aye.
Mieski,
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Hey, Amy, I forgot, I meant to bring you the 5 publication notices and bills, certificates of publication. So I'll either send them or bring them on Thursday for you. I was gonna pay them, but they're like $1,500–1,600, and I thought, I might as well just pass it to you. But I'll see you on Thursday. I'll see you on Thursday too. Right, Don? You're on the planning commission?
Yes.
That's Thursday. Are you on one of those?